Due to survivorship bias, we only hear about the success stories of people who've risked it all to achieve their goals. What's your story of how you did the same, but failed? I started my own company remodeling bars and restaurants. Did all the design work and construction myself. Applied for permits and did all the paperwork too. Hired the trades when needed. I would scout locations and come up with a business plan for the bar, do the interior design, remodel, logo, etc. Everything, and would hand over a turnkey establishment. I'd even hire and train the staff in a few cases. Anyway, a large interior design build contractor in the area got fed up with me once I started gaining serious traction and hiring more employees. They petitioned the city government in the 4 cities I did work to require a pay stamp on any remodels over a certain amount. I was a fresh civil engineering grad and couldn't get my pay license for a few more years. Shut my business down overnight. Working for a large construction company now, making about half what I did before and hating every minute of it. Planning on going back for my MBA soon though. I've got another pretty good idea but need a bit more knowledge about the business world. A much larger business took the time and effort to step on you. That's not failure, that's stymied success. My mother-in-law invested 20-30k in what turned out to be a pyramid Ponzi scheme. LOL. Anyway, she ended up making upwards of 100k off it through the course of a year. I decided to invest 5k and a month later I lost all my money as the company, telex free, went bankrupt. That's the thing with pyramid schemes. Some people actually do make money off of it. Not me but my dad. Amazing pianist and worked selling high-end pianos for a number of years before deciding he wanted to own his own store instead of living on commission and funding someone else's life. Rounded up a couple friends to go into business with. Had almost no capital of his own, so he took out several government loans. Borrowed money wherever he could. Friends, his kids, distant relatives, etc. He refinanced the house, cut all his insurance policies, used inheritance money from a trust fund that my siblings and I were supposed to get from my grandmother passing. Literally put everything into this business from any source he could. So the store stays afloat for a couple years but ultimately fails for several reasons. My mom goes crazy from all the stress and my parents' divorce. Likely would have happened anyway, but this was a final straw type scenario. Dad ends up losing everything and is over $500,000 in debt at this point. He's forced to go back to selling for the guy who took over his franchise. Had to declare bankruptcy so his credit is shot, and will likely not be able to retire. Admire the risk, but the whole ordeal really messed up his and a lot of other people's lives. Nobody blames him or anything. It's really just a shame it went the way it did. When my father decided to start his own business, Glazing, we sold our house for a small profit in 2006, took everything and started a business. It started taking off until August of 2008. Now he's on his 4th job since. Has no insurance. Divorced twice since. Really fricks you up, man. I started developing an app, B2B2C, with my brother-in-law. Actually a pretty good idea. Me developing and him doing content, business side and getting the businesses to join the app. First red flag was when I was busy coding. He was out telling people about his new big company, handing out business cards to family and friends. Second red flag was when he went to the Mercedes dealer to find out what company car he wanted to drive when we made millions in a couple of weeks. I tried to talk with him, nothing really helped. All while I was coding and hoping he would come through. 6 months in he got scared cause some other company started doing something similar. Not really close, but similar. He panicked so hard that he stopped working altogether. In the end I realized he never contacted a single business, and that he probably should have. Sounds more like you were developing an app and your brother-in-law was just using it to show off without doing anything useful. I used to draw Pokemon on adhesive paper to make stickers in elementary school. Kids would buy them from me and put them on their book totes. I used all the money I made to buy more paper and markers. Turns out I had saturated the market and demand for Pokemon stickers reached zero. The venture was a net loss in the end. I quit my nice, secure job to go back to school and pursue my dream to be a scientist. I lived in shithole conditions and worked 2 jobs to support myself through all the undergrad prereqs and then a master's. From there I got a full ride to get a PhD and was a rising star. They even interviewed me for the fundraising booklet and put me on the cover with one of my quotes. I got a great postdoctoral fellowship and a big grant to do my research. I was getting cited and asked to give talks all over the country. Right around this time, my mother's bipolar disorder began to get much worse and I had visit home more and more often as my father struggled to cope. Then his health started to fail as well. I managed to find a position closer to home and moved to take care of my parents. I'm an only child. I tried to manage my career and their needs, but they needed more and more from me and both of them were in the hospital on and off for years. They refused to have any sort of help in the house, anything at all, which made me their nurse and their cleaning lady. They wouldn't see doctors and that meant I could only get them the medical attention they needed when things were so urgent. I would take them to the emergency room. Although I set a lot of limits and made sure to have enough hours to work, the emotional exhaustion and mental load I was always carrying made it very hard for me to be productive. Multiple productive collaborations, the bread and butter of my work, deteriorated as I became too unreliable to work with due to many family emergencies I had to attend to with little notice. People at my work seemed like they were sympathetic and understanding, but my productivity took a nosedive and I was denied tenure and left with a CV so full of gaps it looks like my career now is over. Sometimes things happen beyond your control. Your parents are selfish. Don't know if this belongs here, but a girl I knew from school joined an MLM and sold it hard. One of these meal shake replacement things. She was annoying as balls, posting literally every day with some balls. She's in hospital right now with anemia. Apparently those shakes aren't as healthy as she thought. Great podcast out there called The Dream. Part American history lesson. That is, door-to-door salesman, the fuller brush man, Tupperware, etc. But also a cautionary tale about how these organizations prey on people, especially women. Fascinating. At one point, they have one of the hosts sign up for a gig and go into great detail about her experiences week to week. Highly recommend it. Not a personal story, but I know there was a YouTube story where a guy took years off of work to pursue YouTube as a full-time career and failed in the end. He made a video about how it was a mistake and not as easy as everyone makes it out to be, which if I'm not mistaken got a lot of traction and so maybe he became famous in the end, but who knows. He made a video about how it was a mistake and not as easy as everyone makes it out to be. Whether it's YT, app building or whatever, there's no easy way to earn a lot of money. I started a law firm based on a niche legal specialty I had. I took out a loan for $80,000 to pay for my office expenses and staff. I hired and subsequently fired 50 people in the span of 3 years when the industry I represented tanked. I ended up having to cash in all my retirement and savings so my family could survive for the next year. Now I work as an employee for someone else again. I don't own the firm I work for and had to pay $20K of the original loan out of pocket. Still, no regrets. I took a chance and it didn't work out, but I learned more about the practice of law as a business in those 3 years than in the previous 8 years combined. A friend of mine was cast in pilot and moved to Hollywood. It was not picked up. Every time he was going to move home he'd land a job and his agent would give him the follow your dreams speech. After 25 plus years of close calls and living in poverty, he moved in with his brother and went back to school to be a chef. He now works on the line of an average restaurant making just over minimum wage. Almost 60 years old with no savings. He spent most of his peak earning years working as a waiter and almost landing the big job as an actor. He still wonders if he left a week too soon. His big break was always storing the corner. Oh man, that sucks. At some point I feel like you gotta give up. I have a distant relative who just moved to LA to be an actress at 18. I've got a feeling it won't go well. If you meet enough entrepreneurs it tends to be a boom and bust cycle. You are way up or way down. Some of those people make and lose fortunes over the course of their lives. It's in their blood. They can't help it. I love gambling. Maybe I should try entrepreneuring. When I was 17 I decided to chase my dream of becoming a game developer. I looked for colleges, universities that offered programs that taught development, looked at testimonies and what the courses actually taught, and decided on one. I had no support from my parents, so I ended up taking 2 separate loans for a total of $50,000 to help pay for my tuition and boarding, since it was in a tower a few hours away from where I was living. The course was amazing and taught me so much. I worked my butt off, sometimes staying 3+ days in the lab working on projects and tutoring my classmates. I also starved myself cause money was getting tight. Some days all I had to eat was 2 pieces of white bread with some butter I would steal from a roommate. I felt bad, but I also did all the cleaning, so it kinda balanced out. I even took on some extra projects to help get my name out there, and was even in the local and school papers. Our program was getting popular. Student interviews were pretty easy to get if you put yourself out there. 3rd year rolled around and I didn't slow down. I took leadership on our year-long team assignment. I also did a lot more than I wrote I did, because I didn't like the pace my team wanted to work at. I ended up graduating top 3 of my graduating class. I had on a roll each year and made the dean list the first year, but that's where the good stuff ends. Coming out of school I had a few opportunities. 2 from studios in a big city that offered me unpaid internships. I had to turn those down because they were full-time internships that I would be working 40+ hour weeks and paid in one of the most expensive places to live in my country. At this point I was $50K in debt and just couldn't dive deeper into that hole. The other offer I had was for a startup studio that was just getting started. There was no guarantee of any pay, and I would still have to relocate for the position. So I ended up moving back home and trying some online gigs that led nowhere. The year after graduating I was on the edge of suicide. Hated my life. Struggling with debt. Working 2 jobs I just freaking hated. Met a girl who ended up cheating on me for months without me knowing. My life was just heading nowhere, so I just wanted to quit. Fast forward to current year, I ended up meeting a girl who has just been amazing for me. Ended up finding a job I love working at, but barely pays the bills. I have a lot of free time now, and bills are getting paid, so I decided to work on a solo project, hoping to release it 2019. So my story isn't over yet, but definitely had to catch a rebound. Edit. Holy cow. Thanks everyone for the support. I'm still in shock, lol. Once I get the game more ironed out and in a showable state I will come back and share what I have. Hey, tag us when you have a demo or something. When I finished grad school, my friend and I attempted to turn a side project into a full-fledged business. It failed horribly and I ended up without an income for 6 months, when my husband could definitely not afford to support us and our young child. It was super embarrassing and humbling, but I don't regret it for a second. Oddly, the most impactful part of the experience was designing our website, which made me realize I love UX and web design. So even though it was completely unrelated to the business and my degree, that's what I came out of the experience with. It's been almost 5 years of working towards a career in that field, and I start a position next month where I'll be overseeing UX for a website with over 60 million visitors a year, so you never know where failure can lead. That level of learning from your failure can just be considered an extended semester of grad school, really. Same price, and I'm sure you learned a lot more than previous semesters. 4 rounds of IVF. Plus a 5th using limited anesthesia, which we opted for because it was free, only to experience the miscarriage of our one chance at a biological child. No one posts and shares about the dead-end failures when it comes to infertility. That's a punch right in the heart. I'm so sorry. My father convinced me to drop everything and move home to take over the family farm. In less than a year, my brother is suddenly the one taking over the farm, and my job is to be put down and yelled at while my brother spends foolishly, makes little effort to bring money into the operation, and splits his time between calling me a piece of shit and disappearing for months at a time. Ironically, I had to take on several side projects to keep my family fed, all of which seem to be taking off financially while the farm gets worse and worse. Sell the farm and tell your brother to get fricked. Most of these stories here are financial risk. In my case I risked something else. My health. I started a career in acrobatics, but it was fairly late when I did. I was already I think early 20s. I was in shape thanks to martial arts before, but acrobatics is more demanding on the body. So I studied, did a couple of amateur semi-pro shows, got paid for them too. But as I grew older, my body was starting to fail me due to multiple injuries. I decided to keep pushing, keep learning, and eventually become a full-fledged pro. It was a gamble that I lost. At some point about 3 years ago I was hurting so bad everywhere. I had been told that some of my injuries would last for my whole life. It was painful enough that I couldn't even walk anymore, let alone lifting my partner. I also did hand-to-hand, aka acrobatic duo, and I was the porter. So at age 27 I decided I needed to stop because my body couldn't take it anymore. Had to have a career change. Start over. Today, I'm still hurting, though not as much, thankfully, and I miss acrobatics almost every day. Quitting left me depressed, and I'm only now starting to heal mentally, and hopefully, now at almost 30, I will figure out what to do with my life. Probably go to college. TLDR. I risked my health, both physical and mental, for a career that didn't pay off due to said failing health. I have a similar story, and it is a terrible feeling to have a doctor tell you that the only cause for your injuries was all the times you pushed through it. Instantly, the attitude that made you successful is turned against you. If you ever need someone to talk to who has been there, feel free to reach out. Miscarriages. Nobody tells you how often they happen till you have one. As soon as it happens to you, everyone, I mean just about flippin' everyone, starts telling you how it's happened to them once or twice or more, before you never have any idea. After our late-term miscarriage I was dumbstruck and walking about in a haze, and absolutely everyone I encountered told me their story, including people I'd known for years but had no idea. Played poker and traded stock options. Quit my desk job at 23. The stress of thinking that I had to keep making a certain amount of money to justify not working a job got to me. I started losing almost immediately. Ended up taking bigger and bigger risks, losing it all within 9 months. I've been struggling with my vices and getting back into the workforce for the past 3 years. Mostly my own fault that I'm not employed now. I struggle with ennui. I see my own mortality and struggle to justify to myself that anything matters at all. Getting a 9-5, settling down, finding a girl, married, house, kids, support network to bounce back from these types of things. I've gone through stress, gambling, alcoholism, stomach problems, sleep problems, hemorrhoids. They're all interrelated. Purpose, brother. It's not prescribed. It's subscribed to. Went to night classes for EMT when I was very financially unstable to be able to have a good job I could be proud of myself in. After I graduated, I took the first job that I was offered at a hospital that would pretty much hire anybody with a pulse. I hated it there. They had no pride. They didn't take care of themselves, or even the equipment much. Finally was able to quit that job at the crappy EMS service to work for one closer to home with a much better name for themselves. The shift supervisor at my dream job attempted to make out with me while showing me around one of the empty stations, and I refused his advances. I told him I was flattered but I was not interested. The very next shift I clocked in for, I was told to clock out and leave because I was fired. I actually began crying and asking why, only to be told in our state, they aren't legally required to give a reason why. I ended up having it investigated but it came down to he said she said and nothing came of it. But I did find out from other employees that supervisor had multiple sexual harassment cases against him. Still didn't help me get back my money in time. But I'm still proud of myself for finishing what I started at school, getting my job, and not backing down on my beliefs just to keep that job. I live in a small town, in the south, below 2 other states in the US. I had been stuck in dire financial straits and at the time had a 4-year-old child, whom is now 11. I had no means by which to better our future, so I was feeling rather desperate. I had been watching TV and saw a commercial for Universal Technical Institute, UTI, and thought, this is what I need to do. After phoning every tech school in the area there was and finding none that fit, I called UT and got some base info. About a month later, while in Wichita visiting my dad, I saw the same commercial for UTI and called again. Found out the closest one to me was in Sacramento. Well, shibby, I had no way to get there, so after speaking with a rep from SAC and filling out the application online, and informing him of my current financial situation, I got a Pell Grant to UTI at the tune of $30,000 and a small loan that I didn't know I didn't have to apply for. I hitchhiked from Wichita KS to Sacramento CA to attend. Everything was set. All I had to do was get there. Mind you, I was going to be homeless once I got there, but that didn't matter. Just attending, and the counselor I spoke with directly said that would be fine. They'd work something out. When I got to Sacramento 3 weeks later, the day before I was scheduled to start, I was informed that I needed an additional $5,000 to cover the rest of what the Pell didn't cover. The on-site counselor tried to find other small loans I could get, but to no avail. I had made it clear that I would be homeless. No problem, they said. The amount of my tuition was never made clear before I started hitching. Red flag, I know. Anyway, I wound up homeless in Sacramento for nearly 4 years. It was a last-ditch, risk-it-all effort that failed. My son really wanted to study there at UT, and he was told his repayment would $50 a month for a $50K loan. I told him a 30-year payment schedule would be more like $250 a month. Also, same certificate was available for $800 at the local community college. Thank goodness he listened. August 1, finally started my new business by investing more than $100,000 savings into it, hiring 6 staff and guaranteeing their salaries for 1 year, contracting office space and fitting out computers, printers, the works. Look out, world. Here we come. August 26. Taken out by delivery van speeding through red light while on my motorcycle. Shattered leg and immobilized for 3 months. Paid out staff per my commitment. Paid penalty to end rental lease early. Sat around living room thinking, welp, that didn't work out. Did it, Kanga? P.S. It's all good. Life is funny. So nothing to do but laugh and smile and be grateful I'm still kicking. Figuratively. Enjoy every single day, kids. Spent my early 20s working as a Mercedes master tech at one of the most prestigious dealerships in the world. 6-figure income. Lived in a 470 square foot studio apartment, saving all my money. Started my own business building race cars at age 24 with 2 partners. Fast forward to 5 employees. Magazine write-ups. Customers from all over the country. World records, etc. Fast forward to the recession. No more race car market. Close business. Discover girlfriend of 3 years was only into a guy that was a business owner and could drop $5K on Vegas vacations randomly. Break up. She steals my dog. Spend next year working 3 jobs to pay off debt instead of declaring bankruptcy. Don't want to work on cars anymore. Join Navy. My advice is buy a pickup truck and write a country song. I have spent my entire life obsessing about airplanes. I always wanted to be a pilot, but I never believed in myself that I could achieve it. There was one great teacher though. She believed in me, so I decided to go to university. I redid my GCSEs. Went for A-levels. I was top student. I have entered university with top score, and that's when things went downhill. I didn't get along with anyone. My relationship with my family worsened. I have fallen into bad depression. To cheer myself up, I decided to go for medical. I knew I could get it. I felt pretty healthy. Then my mum stopped me. She told me that I was diagnosed with autism in my childhood. I went for medical anyway. I have failed it, and I have failed university. I dropped out of music school to be a rock star. I felt I had enough in common with my idols to make a go at it, but I never once considered that. To a certain degree, every rock star is enormously lucky. I was not so lucky. If it makes you feel any better, at least you're not 50k plus in debt from a music degree. I know way too many people that have a huge debt and a music degree, working it as a waiter etc. I wouldn't say I risked it all, but I risked some professional security and comfort by leaving a high-paying successful sales job for an even more potentially lucrative one in the US. I'm Canadian BTW. The idea was that I'd work in Canada as an independent contractor for them. The base salary was very good, and the commission potential was phenomenal. However, after 7 months into a role that they had said would take 12-18 months to ramp up, they decided to bail on Canada and sent me packing 2 weeks before Christmas last year. I had spent a couple thousand on accountant lawyer fees and getting incorporated was mandatory for them. My wife in the meantime also lost her job and oddly enough got a new one the day before I got let go. It took me almost 9 months to find another role. I'm very happy now, but between corporate taxes, more accounting and lawyer fees, having to support myself and wife while she ramps up, we're now $20,000 in the hole. I know this means like nothing to a lot of people, but where we are in our life, it derailed a lot of plans we had. Kids, for example. Our life has been tumultuous professionally for the last 3 years and only now have we both been employed for 4 months. In hindsight I could have stayed at my previous job, but this was a risk reward where I truly thought I could change our futures and our potential kids' futures money wise. It just didn't pan out, and I had to start all over at the beginning. Took out a business loan to become a freelancer in the field that I studied and graduated in. No one responded to my applications. On the plus side, I got myself enough equipment to keep it as a hobby, and the loan is literally one payment away from being paid off. Similarly, did the whole full-time YouTuber thing. No views. Burnout. Went back to being a hobby. YouTube is a really depressing place for me. I see some of the dumbest content creators getting tens of millions of views on every video, and know they are getting rich as frick off it. At the same time I stumble upon these people who have really tried, put tons of hours into brand creation, filming, editing, etc. all to get a couple hundred views years later. My startup may be in the process of closing. We've been at it for a year and a half, risked about $250,000 between all the founders and have perpetually been on the cusp of making it. VCs telling us that they will fund us in a few months, then backing out. Big companies asking to use our service but the deal's always falling through. The thing I have learned though is that there is some truth to that old cliche of shoot for the moon and if you miss you will land among the stars. I had a good 6-figure job before this, but I was low on the totem pole and lacked the skills needed to rise. This past 1.5 years I have gained so much as a developer and project manager that I will be able to go back to my old career in a much better position. Listen to a partner who asked me to wait till she finished her degree to sell my house and relocate. Had worked for 5 years to remodel the worst house in a great neighborhood. Mortgage was only $84K. House was worth $200K on a bad day. Never thought I'd be underwater. What difference will a year make? I thought. 1 year later couldn't give a house away. 4/5 on the block were in foreclosure. Unemployment was 20%. The bank auctioned it for $44K 5 years later. That's how long it took BC of how many were foreclosed in our area. I had not only lost my job, but BC the guy that caused me to lose my job was on drugs. He irrationally blacklisted me in the small industry completely. I had gone above and beyond for his company and this individual. Then, the partner I put my plans on hold for, in part due to her trauma, in part due to menopause, lost her grip on reality and went from kind of a jerk to full abusive delusional BPD. Would not get help, would not work as promised, moved out, 10 years and $80K in student loans. I never left school and the loans helped keep me and my kids afloat. I just got a job in my career field and I'll be digging my way out of debt for years to come. Being single, priceless. I spent 20 years trying to be a rock star. I ignored my private life and career. I am both a college graduate and in my early 50s. I don't have kids. I don't have a decent 401k. I'm single. I married a man 16 years younger than me. He convinced me that he was devoted and loving. I believed we had a deeply intimate relationship. I loved him absolutely. We were married for almost 20 years before I found out he'd been lying to, cheating on, and stealing from me, possibly for the entire length of our time together. The discovery blew up our family. It has had terribly destructive consequences for me and my children. It negatively affected my relationship with my own family and completely severed my relationship with his. He started a new family and moved out of state, seemingly unaffected other than the temporary financial inconvenience of support payments. Love does not conquer all. If karma is a bee, she is a fickle one. Spouse and I went hard into an MLM that was really picking up in mid 2016 and invested a lot of money into it. I think our net after we closed up shop was around $25,000 in losses. And I'm glad we left when we did because the MLM went downhill in a matter of months after that. I've heard of people who lost much more. You'll meet one successful seller with a bunch of people under them, of course, who will try to defend and explain away everything for another 500 sellers struggling to survive and break even. Frick Lularo and their fugly, crap quality rags. You should share your story at Arantimlum if you haven't already. Spent years and years and years working on music and music videos. Had a whole label and studio I ran. Wasted tons of money and tons of time. Made a lot of mistakes. Was incredibly stubborn. Only worked with people I grew up with and they didn't have the motivation or drive. Executive produced a few albums that they didn't even bother to try and promote. They only did the fun part of making the music and weren't up for the hard part of promoting, marketing and building their brand. I would be up all night till the sun came up working on their music by myself in the studio for years and years. Decided to switch it up and pursue film. Started a YouTube channel with my brother. Been 3 years and so far it's been just as much of a failure. Delayed my first full-length documentary. Everything is falling apart. At least it makes me happy doing it. More than the music did. I've literally been flirting with homelessness and spending every last dollar I have. I've slept in my car. I've spent my last money on projects. My social life is nil. All I do is work on my dream. And nothing has ever worked as much as I try to improve and grow, live and learn. At least I tried. Not me but my uncle. Quit his job in IT to open a small MSP that just never really took off. He lost his shirt and has been significantly more depressed and bitter ever since. I used to be a patent attorney. I met many people who spent all their life savings and all went into debt to develop a technology or product that they were convinced would change the world only to find out that someone else held the patent. I played poker for a living from about age 18 to 25. I worked a normal job while also playing poker from 18-20 and played poker exclusively from 20-25. My annual earnings ranged from $107K to $451K. I have the exact numbers on hand because I keep exact record of my earnings in case I get audited for back taxes. I mostly played online, but some of my earnings was live games. I was very successful with a system of play for cash games, ring games, but I wasn't very good at tournament play. I had some tournament success, but overall it was a loss for me. I started budgeting portions of my income for improving my tournament play. I started getting bored of playing for personal improvement, and it quickly became playing as a means of gambling. My cash game play was still successful, but I was spending $20K per month playing $500 buying online tournaments. My cash gameplay started diminishing as more responsibilities entered my life. I started thinking the only reason I had success was because I had a disregard for the value of money. As I got engaged and became a father, I started playing more conservatively and made less money. I started doubting myself, doubting that I could be successful now that I needed to earn money to take care of my family. Stopped playing altogether when I got married. I've played occasionally, maybe once a year. I make a fair bit of money each time, and that makes it really hard for me because my wife will push me to keep at it, but I can't. Edit. Getting lots of comments and PMs telling me that I should get back into it. That isn't going to happen. I have no passion for it anymore, and I have much better sense today. Even the prospect of making $100 $200K per year isn't enticing enough to do it. Even if I was interested, it would require too much time and money to even get to the point where I could have a sense of whether I was able to make it. It would take me months and $20 $50K just to go through the swings. That kind of time and money could start a business. Also, several people have PM'd me asking if I could share info about my playing strategy. I have been out of it for 8 or 9 years now. I'm not confident that I could actually provide a complete enough write-up. It would be forgetting too many important things. Offer me as much money as you want. I can't accept money for something that I'm not confident in. Listened to a close friend on a private investment and placed upwards of $500K in equity. Sold after it made $130K and walked with cash in pockets. The firm today is worth $2.6 billion. I had a 13% stake. I would literally have my name in Forbes for something and living a completely different life. I didn't technically fail, but boy does it feel like it. Oof, I would gather there are a lot of similar stories to you. My husband and I have always dreamed of getting out of the US. My husband, a people pleaser, became depressed working at a job he hated for people who never stopped taking and demanding more and more from him. I got accepted to a prestigious university in another country and we were both stoked. We saved up $10K and had another $10K in available credit. We sold everything we owned and could fit everything that remained in our suitcases. My husband thought he could get a transfer with his company. He couldn't. He then thought he could get a job in the new country with the company that contracted his old company. He couldn't. I thought I'd get awarded more financial aid than I'd even actually need to take out. I didn't. I didn't get enough to cover tuition. We moved anyway. He had 90 days to find a job before he'd have to leave for 90 days. You can only visit 90/180 days without a visa. We didn't last 30 days. It was incredibly stressful. It turned out my husband's situational depression wasn't cured but exacerbated. He discovered he was more looking forward to quitting his job and not so much to all that came after that. He was just too drained. We found an apartment and when it came time to sign the letting agreement, he just couldn't do it. It was clear he couldn't mentally handle what we'd done, so we came back to the States and we're living with his parents. IDK if I'll ever be able to go back to school, so I just need to get into the workforce full time. My dreams were all crushed. No new country, no amazing university, no degrees required to enter my dream field. Upside. We got a long break from employment, which was nice, and he's starting a new job next week for $10K more than he was making at his last job. We should have all our debt paid off in about 6 months. Thankfully it sounds like you had a good stable base to fall back on and have managed to pick yourselves up into your feet somewhat. Don't let the dream die. Put it up on the shelf for now and build towards it again. Next time when you reach for it, it won't be out of desperation and you'll know what things to look out for. That'll make achieving it much easier. Don't give up. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.